In this video, I'm gonna give you my very best tips I would give to my 18-year-old self. And you wanna make sure you watch this video until the end because these are truly the tips I wish I knew when I was 18. And if I knew them back in the past, it would have accelerated my career a lot more further. And so whether you're 18 now or maybe you might be older, these tips are still gonna be timeless, they're still gonna apply, and I'm confident you can benefit from them. Now, before we go ahead and get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's go ahead and dive in. Now, the first tip that I have for my 18-year-old self is that I would say that my potential is only limited by my own imagination. Now, let me go ahead and unpack that a little bit. So back when I was in high school, I didn't really have high hopes for myself and nobody really pushed me further to really try to reach the next level, right? So I remember at the time, my grades weren't really that good. I wasn't very popular. There's nothing very outstanding about me, right? So when it came time to decide what kind of career, I should pursue and what kind of college I should go to and all these things, I was thinking at the time like, people like me, I'm not really doing that great. So what's an okay job? And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll be a dentist, right? And so I went on Google and I looked up, how to become a dentist. And I found that it's quite difficult to go through all that schooling. So I was like, okay, that's too hard for me. What's the next best step? Dental assistant, right? And I looked it up. I was like, oh, they don't require that much schooling. They make okay money. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll be a dental assistant. And what's so interesting is that nobody really pushed me or said anything about that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a dental assistant. I'm just saying that I limited my own potential and I actually could have pushed so much further if I had known, right? And it took me, a couple years later to start realizing and start learning about business and entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, actually, I can go a lot farther than I thought. But in the past, I thought my potential was capped and that was it and that was gonna be my life. And if I had that mentality, if I kept it, as I did now, maybe I would be a dental assistant or a registered nurse or something like that right now, right? And I'm not saying those careers are bad or anything like that. They do make pretty good money. However, it's not really the route I wanted to go, but I didn't think I can do any better. And so whether you're young or older, no matter what the case is, just know that your potential is limited by your imagination because, if you don't believe you can do something, you're not even gonna try, right? And you're not even gonna know if it's possible or not. So at least believe in yourself to give yourself a chance and try something new. And the next tip that I have is that life is completely random, okay? So I think when I was younger, I always had this mentality of like, I had to figure it myself, like I willed myself to success and I did everything myself, right? But in reality, you gotta understand, and I wish I understood that in the past, that life is completely random, right? Where we grow up, who our parents are, who our friends are, in our geographical location is random. A lot of times when we're younger, we don't even choose these things. We're just born into it. And when you're born into something, your environment definitely influences who you are in the future, right? And so your personality, in a sense, there is a lot of luck and randomness to it. So I wish I knew that when I was younger because then I would have been more appreciative of everything that I had. And I feel like when I was younger, I always kind of compared myself to other people saying like, oh, how come this person is successful and I'm not and this and that. And it's just like, it's very a dark energy, right? But if I understood that life is random and you got what you got and you just got to make the most out of it, I think I would have went through my 18-year-old life and plus a lot more happier and more grateful versus always trying to climb up. I would have been happy with where I'm at, but at the same time had the ambition to keep going. And I'm not saying that hard work doesn't exist. Like I think there's two ways of looking at luck, right? There's one where it's complete luck, where you're born in America, right? Or you're born in another country. That's luck. You don't get to decide. But there is the combination of, let's say, opportunity and hard work. I do believe in that, where you keep working hard and open up opportunities. And when it comes to you, just by random chance, you actually have an opportunity to take it. I believe in that, but I also believe in pure dumb luck as well. And the next tip I have for my 18-year-old self is that you want to be a lifelong learner, okay? And an extension of that is, you can't always rely on school to teach you everything about how to succeed in the real world, right? So, if you think about it, I went to a public education system from, when I was in kindergarten all the way to high school, okay? And I grew up in California and somewhere near Los Angeles. And the public education system was all right. It did get you a certain distance, but it wasn't really going to, make you a superstar or like bring out your full potential. And I think You know, if you go through the public schooling system like I did, or even if you go to different school, you have to understand that not always will you get the benefit of people, you know, maximizing who you are as a person, right? Sometimes they don't have the time, resources to do it. So to be a lifelong learner means that you have to, I would recommend myself, my 18-year-old self, to self-educate on whatever you find interesting, right? It doesn't even matter what the topic is. You know, spend some time to learn about what is your interest, right? For me at that time, I started to think about like, oh, maybe I can do business, right? And nobody around me really did any business. Nobody was like, Patrick, you should be an entrepreneur. Nobody really said those things. And so I had to go out, read different books. Like I remember one book very impactful for me was Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson, which is an entrepreneurship book, despite how it sounds. And yeah, and that's how I kind of understood like, oh, that's what an entrepreneur is. He started a business and you make money and you hire people. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And so that's the path I decided to take. But throughout the entire process, it's like school doesn't teach you everything. You have to basically educate yourself and learn things that you find interesting and go out there and get it and be a lifelong learner. And even now, I'm at a certain point in my life where I'm doing all right, but I'm still always learning, right? I'm always learning something new. And I feel like, you know, the moment I feel that I figured it out and I got it locked down, that's when I have to, you know, check myself and realize that no, that you're not really figuring it out. You're actually just stagnating, right? And so that's why, you know, no matter what situation you're in, it's always helpful to be a lifelong learner. And the next tip I have is that perspective is everything, okay? So I think when I grew up, when I was 18, basically I grew up in California my entire life up until 18, right? Or even longer than 18, but all I knew was my city, okay? So all I knew was like maybe like a 20-mile radius of where I grew up, and that was my life. And when that happens, you're kind of in a bubble, right? You're in a bubble of whatever that culture is, and you know, that is your world perspective. And you gotta understand, like a 20-mile radius in California is not really that big, right? Because what about people in New York or Texas, or what about people all over the world? Like, what is their perspective? How do they look at life? Is there anything I can learn from them and bring it back home? And I think because no one really pushed me to travel a lot during that age, I never even thought about like looking at things from other people's perspective. It was only really through going to different universities. I probably went to 4 different universities for different occasions, you know, during my college career. And by going to different schools, some of them were great, some of them were really great, right? I went to USC, and some of them were not that great, right? And when you see the different perspectives of, you know, all the different students and peers that I had, that's when I started to open up my mind a little bit more. And I also studied abroad in Hong Kong too. So by living half a year in another country in Hong Kong, you start to understand that, you know, my way of life back in California is not the only way to live, and that, you know, somewhere across the entire world, people are looking at things from a totally different perspective, and their outlook and their experience on life is totally different as well. So I think by learning different perspective, it allowed me to have more empathy for other people, to understand people from different cultures and backgrounds, and you know, by being more understanding of other people, I think I was also able to build better connections with people, and you know, and I feel like your relationships directly impact your quality of life. So by having more perspective, you have a better quality of life indirectly in a sense. And the next tip I have for myself is that life isn't fair. Be grateful for what you have, right? And this is kind of an extension of like life is totally random and it's based on luck. So I grew up most of my life in America, studied abroad in Hong Kong, came back to America, worked in Silicon Valley, blah, blah, blah. And then I moved to Asia, right? So right now I'm recording this video in Asia. So by living in different places, you definitely get to see different perspectives, right? By living in California, in Los Angeles, one perspective, and going to USC, and then moving to, let's say, San Francisco and Silicon Valley, that's a whole different technology perspective. And now I'm in Asia, and that's a whole new perspective, right? And so it's like by seeing all these different things, you understand that life is not fair, okay? So I'll give you an example. So let's say America, right? If you're working at McDonald's, maybe you can make like $30,000 a year working at McDonald's, okay? It's not really a bad job because it doesn't require any experience. You can learn on the job and it makes pretty decent money, right? You can definitely live an okay life with that. Now, if you are in, let's say, like a Thailand or Vietnam or Southeast Asia, and you're working at McDonald's doing the same exact job as the person in America, you might be getting paid $300 a month, around that, right? Working full time. So if you think about this, the guy in America is making $30K a month working at McDonald's, and the guy in, let's say like Thailand or Vietnam is making like $300 doing the same exact job. How is that fair? The other person is making 100 times more than the guy in America is making 100 times more as the other guy, and they're working the same job. And so that's when I realized, like, you know, of course there's like economies and the currency and things like that, but my point is, you know, moving all that aside, life is not fair, right? Like, some people are born in situations where there's war and there's not really much of an economy to get a good job and make good money, and it's hard to provide for your family. And it's just like, even if they're smart, hardworking, just because their economic circumstance doesn't allow them to reach their full potential. Whereas, let's say someone born in America, I mean, I feel very lucky that I was born in America. I went to public school and it's free, and I got a pretty decent education. I went to a good university, and like, you know, I was off and on my way. But then it's like, so, you know, the thing is, like, am I really that great of a person that, like, I'm successful, or is it that I'm just born in that environment and that I was able to, you know, see the opportunities I had in front of me and take advantage of it, right? So no matter what situation you're born in, whether you feel like you're lucky or not lucky or whatever it is, understand that, you know, life is not going to be fair. So no matter what situation you're in, be grateful for what you have, right? And so if I knew that when I was 18, I would actually feel a lot more happier in my day-to-day and not fall into like these points of depression, which I did when I was younger. And I would have lived, I guess, a much more high quality, fun life. And not to say that I was totally depressed, it was just certain moments in my life. But if I knew that, I would be grateful for, let's say, my parents, or I would be grateful for living in America, or be grateful for going to an okay school and all these things, right? And there's no reason to complain about life because things are going really well. And carrying that lesson to even now, I can still have the same mentality of everything that I have now, everything's working so far, and why not just be grateful for it versus trying to be like, oh, this guy's more successful than me, I need to climb higher and have this negative energy, right? So, and even if you're in a worse situation, same thing, because if you're watching this video, there's probably someone else out there who has it harder than you. So you gotta be grateful for what you got in general. And the next tip that I have for myself is that I wish I knew my source of motivation would be to help and inspire others, okay? So around the age of 22, that's when I read this book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And one of the conclusions that I drew from this book was that it was important to have a reason or a purpose to live, right? And you can make up any reason you want. I'm not saying this is exactly what the book is about, but I'm saying that that's what the conclusion that I got for myself when I read the book, okay? So for me, it's to inspire others, right? And that is, I feel like from a professional standpoint, one of the best feelings that I have, or even personal standpoint, is to help other people, inspire them, show them that they're more capable than they really are, and help them achieve what they want to achieve, right? And so that's why I'm doing these YouTube videos and doing like sales coaching and trying to share my stories in hopes to inspire you to do something in your life and to achieve what you want to achieve, right? So that's the whole goal. So if I knew that when I was 18 years old, then I think I would have got started a lot sooner when it came to entrepreneurship. I would have probably taken different internships to, you know, try to help more people and inspire others versus just taking opportunities. And I think that would have definitely changed my life and put it in a different trajectory, because when you know what you want to do in your life and you're starting early, it just gives you a lot more momentum. But because I started around the age of 22 with that mindset, that's when I really felt like I got started in my life. And the final tip I have when it relates to my 18-year self is make my first $1. Now, you see, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was 18, right? But because I didn't really have an entrepreneurial environment in school, and you know, my parents and things like that weren't necessarily entrepreneurs that would mentor me or anything like that, I had to figure it out by myself. And I think I tried many different things for many different years, and it was only until later on in my life that I was able to start making money as an entrepreneur. But I feel that when I was 18, what I should have focused on is actually just making my first $1. It doesn't even matter what the idea is, because ideas can change, businesses can change, but if you get momentum, you make that first $1, you start realizing you can make $2, you can make 10, then 100, then 1,000, then 10,000, then 100,000, and then maybe one day 1,000,000, right? So that's what I wish I knew when I was 18. Just get started, make your first $1. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as it's legal. Just get started, whether it's online, brick and mortar, you're just buying and selling something on eBay, doesn't matter. Just get started. I wish I knew that when I was 18, because I would have started entrepreneurship at a much earlier age than I did. But regardless, I'm still happy with the way everything turned out. But if I were to give myself advice, that's exactly what I would say. And so with that said, those are gonna be my best tips for my 18-year-old self. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications if you wanna see more videos like this, and let me know in the comments what was your #1 takeaway. I'm happy to hear what you guys have to say. So with that said, my name is Patrick Dang, and I am gonna see you guys in the next one.